Good morning and welcome to the Art of Rock. At the time of recording this, it is a Saturday morning. This is every Saturday morning, and I'm hoping that soon we're going to get to do this live again. I've just got stuff going on everywhere, which is prohibiting me from doing this live. First and foremost, I would like to acknowledge the Tongva people as the traditional landowners, specifically of this part of Los Angeles, in whence I am. The Art of Rock is every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. LA time, 12 o'clock New York time, and 6 p.m. Berlin time. It's going to be on the YouTube that you're watching now, or on ANGELSPIT'S Twitch. This is made possible with ANGELSPIT'S Patreon. Thank you for everybody for being here. The Patreon really keeps me going, and I need it right now more than ever. And I am so grateful that you guys are backing me. Bless you. Thank you. ANGELSPIT'S new album is on BANDCAMP. It's called The Bastard Gods, and the vinyl is here and it is shipped out. And if you ordered the vinyl, you might be getting it today or Monday. In the United States, everyone else, Alex, yours has gone out, as I told you in the chat on the Discord. But everyone, it's gone out. The Industrial Incisions playlist is a wonderful place to go and find new music and old music. The link to that is in the description of this YouTube video. And if you want more amazing music, you have to follow MTV TV. They're on Twitch. They're also in the description of this video. Normally we'd be rating to Twitch, but unfortunately we're not going to rate to Twitch because this isn't live. But that's okay. Welcome to the Art of Rock. I'm going to start with a non-rock related question. This is a question pertaining to visuals and grainy footage. Alex, ask the question, please.
Yeah, I shot a promo video, I think a couple of weeks ago, and I wanted to do it in a moody light. I shot my my music machines with like some LED lights in color, but the problem was I didn't see on my phone screen how grainy the footage was. I only saw that when I had the file on my computer. And the editing program I used sort of got rid of it, but not really. You could still see moving and it was not quite perfect. And also scaling it down to from 4K to I think 720p also helped a bit, but you can still see some unnatural movement. And I think it looks kind of unprofessional. I mean, I'm not a professional, but I would still like to get rid of it. And if someone has an idea how to maybe get footage that doesn't suffer from this problem, I'd love to hear that.
Thank you so much, Rezzy. The floor is yours.
Hi. The short answer is you can't get rid of it. The slightly longer answer is yeah, Resolve is a free program that has all the features and has some great noise reduction algorithms. And then we'll go to the longer answers, which are there are third-party utilities also, but Resolve has a way, and I'm not saying this as a solution, but it's an interesting side story, of going to the next frame and the previous frame and comparing the differences between those that aren't vectors of motion, but are the pixels changing and saying, ah, that's noise. And it can go like 3 frames in the future and 5 frames in the past, and do a really pretty impressive job of taking away the telltale rapidly changing individual pixel brightnesses and colors that we see as digital noise. I don't know that the free version of Resolve has that enabled, but if it does, it's a great tool to mess around with. I have had some acceptable. I'm going to use this from, this is ruined. I can't use it. That said, the answer part of my answer is when you're doing stuff that looks dark, it's got to be shot bright. That's the only trick. There's going to be noise in your shot no matter what, but if your shot is bright, you don't see the noise. So it's a trick of every camera has noise down in the dither, in the lowest dimnesses of your pixel samples. But if your scene is all bright, then you can just shove them down and put them into the black and you'll never see them. So the trick is, unfortunately, shoot it super bright and contrasty and shift your whole thing, your entire brightness range down so it looks dim. The bright spots will stay bright and punchy. They won't be overexposed if you expose for them right. The shadows will drop into black if you didn't light super carefully, but they won't be noisy. And your I'm going to get attacked here any minute now, but the trick is definitely at least one light source that's exposed correctly. Drop the rest of it down. It'll give it the effect of being shadowy. So if between what you've got and that solution, there's live with the noise. And if it wasn't part of your design, wasn't part of what you intended, it's going to ruin your day and there's no way around it. But at least you've got the cool looking footage. And if the stuff in the picture is pretty damn cool or the story is compelling, everybody forgives the noise. And it's not like it's not a deal breaker for anybody viewing it. If they're immersed in the images and story. I'm going to leave it at those sort of three things that come to mind for that. But if there's something specific I can answer about your camera, please just chime in and ask.
Yeah, it's just an iPhone camera, nothing fancy.
Which generation?
The last one.
A 15?
Yeah.
Oh, not the 15 Max.
Well, yes, but
dude. Okay, so the real answer then.
That shows that it's the craft of the
yes
filming person and not the gear, because
absolutely
it's supposed to be great and my footage looks amateur.
So, but the solution is download Blackmagic's camera app, shoot in ProRes log, and put a color grade. An unlog, so it goes to Rec 2020 or whatever your target color space is. This is a lot of buzzwords, but this is your path. Download a third-party camera app. That is the free one right now is Blackmagic. Shoot in ProRes, super high quality rate, and log, which means all of your shadows to highlights will be represented out of the noise area. And then you'll have to do some processing on the back end, and that's probably better for a dedicated video show of somebody who's actually done it, because I don't have that exact workflow going. But if you do that, you have basically the closest thing we've seen in a phone to broadcast ready, cinematic, lovely video. It gives you so much flexibility. Your shadows and highlights are in a great range. All of your gray tones in the middle will be in a great range, and there will be no compression artifacts from the ProRes codec. So do it. You'll be
super
psyched.
Quick. Thank you. Can you please put the name of that app? I'm assuming it's an app that goes on your phone. Can you please put it in the chat, please?
You bet.
That's great. Thank you so much. Please pick up your cat and hug it. Meeting a cat that actually knows that the most aggravating thing to do in a studio is to whack the microphone with its tail. Do it, Mark. Hug that thing. That's very impressive. Ivan, hit me with your wisdom.
A thing to always remember when you're shooting video or film is that you're collecting data. Light is data. The more data you have, the more data you have to work with, and you can fix everything with filters later. Back when I was doing a lot of Premiere Pro, like bright shiny scenes and then run it through filters was the best way to get it to where it needed to be, because so many the nice thing with Adobe is there were Photoshop plugins that worked with Premiere Pro, and then I had a Linux tool that I could just dump video in on the command line and run it through a chain of effects, and it would just drop it out on the other side, and then I could just pick it up and use it. Lately, I've been looking at a Sony NEX7 mirrorless digital. Sony is a standard for lens attaching, and looking very closely at a bunch of old Soviet lenses that there are adapters for, which will do crazy old lens stuff, because doing that in
Have we had this conversation before?
Vaguely.
Oh, okay,
yes.
keep
Doing that
going.
in post-processing is a pain. And it's mostly because I want artifacts.
But there's artifacts, like there's like digital artifacts, and then there's Well, you know what, man?
Cool
I don't know. I'm
analog.
learning here. I'm out of my.
Oh yeah. So am I.
That's great.
Okay, those are my thoughts.
It would be great if there was like, and I'm sure this exists, a camera, a lens thing for your phone. And I'm sure it exists. Yes, it exists. Of course it exists. And Rezi, if you could put the name, oh, he's doing it now. Thank you. There it is. So this Helios, hold on, what is this? You just put in the link. What is that? Oh, right. That's the lenses you can get for your phone. Thanks. How about the app you were talking about? Does anybody else have some Jedi level wizardry wisdom on this grainy footage? Because this is great. I'm learning a lot. Yeah. Making a digital camera not look like a digital camera. Here's something very interesting. So one of the theaters I work in, they do a whole bunch of movies there. They've shot Forrest Gump. Spielberg shoots in there. They shot the basement downstairs, which is the creepiest thing you've ever seen. They shoot horror movies in there all the time. And it's one of the big places in LA where people shoot everything in this theater. Okay, I'm going to make a list of that Blackmagic thing because it's great. Dang it. Okay, so obviously theaters are these days moving. It has a massive huge big live stage that I work on, and they are they're moving to digital. So it's all LEDs, less power, less heat, better light. It's a different signature of light. So as a result, a lot of movie crews and everything else that are coming in, they're loving the digital technology. But it's interesting that there is a turn back to people requesting traditional par cans with big, heavy, hot electric lights in them because they look different on film. They prefer the look of them. It's really, really interesting. And these are this is Scorsese and Spielberg and people of that ilk who just say, I don't want to shoot with digital. I've got to have par can lighting. Rezi, hit me with your amazingness.
The lights are a really cool, slight difference. The LEDs are getting close. Like everybody uses them. We're all sitting under LEDs. All of Hollywood's using LEDs, but those $10,000 Arri 5K or whatever huge lights that just put out so much intensity, like there's no replacement for them. And the LED spectrum has little gaps in it still. Like it's not a complete full color representation. So like, I'm bad with emissive and reflective color science. It's not my main thing that I obsess about. But if there's gaps in the spectrum, you can't see that color. Like if there's no blue shining from the light in a little bandwidth, then there's no blue reflecting back into the camera. So you miss some of the shades of blue. So to get really, really completely smooth, rich, saturated, perfect tones to then manipulate, going back to tungsten, which is a complete full spectrum from all visible light down into the infrared and up into the ultraviolet, they render the entire thing so smoothly and so satisfyingly, glowingly and people have so much to work with. Like Ivan was saying, the data is all there. You're not missing any of the information.
That's brilliant.
It's
That's
a cool
fascinating.
thing. Yeah.
That's fascinating. I never thought about that. That's brilliant. Alex, hit me.
I would have a follow-up question about affordable lighting, because I thought about that, and my idea was to get like I think it's called plywood in English, like this cheap wood, and attach like maybe 5 light bulb mounts on there, and then try to angle it in my face or at my gear or whatever I want to shoot. Is this a good idea, or maybe are there much better, more affordable options?
Rezi, go.
Yeah, the pre-built stuff from China, the competition is so fierce and the Amazon is so low that it's hard to beat something that's also going to be, you can break it down and stash it in the bag that comes with it. I applaud experimenting with light sources. You will get different looks. Your stuff will be unique. It'll be of your own hands. It'll break when you put it down, and that's, half of the fun if you're into it. But any light source LED flat thing on a circuit board, or COB LED single source that looks, like a piece of clear plastic with one emitter, or a bulb that screws into a socket and fits into a thing. Then you can have a modifier in front of it, which is like a softbox or a reflector or controllers to keep the spill down. And it's probably going to come with an egg crate grid to focus the beams forward. Your options are just like so covered for $30 for a single fixture or whatever it is, the same amount you're going to end up spending on lamps, plywood, sockets, cables, and a dangerous extension cord, that it's tough to beat that. You can beat it because it's custom and you made it. But if you want something that's kind of doing the standard Hollywoodish looking cinematic, director of photography stuff, there's a lot of soft boxes and mini reflectors and mini spots and floods and stuff that it's a whole world to get into that way. And starts cheap.
And I would also go out on a limb and suggest that you also get a clamps and elbow clampy things as well, because oh my god, you need them. And also big chunky things. What do you call it? Alligator
furniture clamps, or
big furniture clamps. Yeah. And also, I think every single band has to do a video where there's a swinging light bulb. They've gone out, yes. They've really gone. I haven't seen a good swinging light bulb or a bad swinging light bulb in quite a while, and everyone's got to have a swinging light bulb. Like, I shot this in my wardrobe, and here's the swinging light bulb. It's got to happen. If anybody else wants to throw in on this, because it's fascinating, we all need to be making more videos so we can send our videos to MTV TV. You guys are up to 90 hours right now or something, Diana? 90 hours, 90 hours. Let's make it 95 before Christmas. Let's do it. I would like to suggest that we, I see the hand of Res E.
I just wanted to add one thing before we move on from the topic. In general, smaller light sources like the one on your phone camera, no matter where you place them, are going to create harsh shadows and a mottled appearance, defined shadows. Large light sources are going to create softer fall off where there's not as hard a line going on where you do. And generally speaking, if you can get something that's like 2 feet wide and put it arm's length from your face, it'll have a sort of wraparound effect. You can see the light on my shoulders has hard shadows. That's a single small source. The light on my forehead here has a gradient. That's because it's a big ass, softbox. So, when you're doing your shopping, I'm going to look for a couple of links if I can find anything, but those are your kind of choices. Small light, big light makes a big difference.
Thank you. Yeah, I need to take this shit seriously. Oh, there's a big conversation in that one. But now we're going to talk about release promos. If we want, Rizzy, you brought that up for you. Do you want to jump in and throw out a question and we'll jump on that damn question?
Yeah, do you want me to throw my sob story in first?
Oh, please. No, I'm serious. It's okay, man. You can sob.
I've been sitting on a record for a year or whatever, just like, I'm going to give it to this label. We're going to talk about this and do this release strategy. And I know we've talked here several times about different ways of prolonging the agony and, singles first and waterfall releases. And there's no more concise way of saying it other than that doesn't work very well with anxiety or depression when it's your own motivation that's required to do this stuff. And I relish the support that I get here and the support that I get from fans and the support that I get from industry DJs and stuff like that. And it's the only, motivating factor I got if it's not internal, personally speaking. But that's an uphill battle that isn't one where more effort helps. It's not like a lot of days or weeks or months. I can just say, I'll just work harder next month. Yeah. Is that a comment?
No, that's me trying to put my hand up, but you have to keep talking.
Yeah.
This is a good rant.
I thought it was like kind of interesting or informative, or at least, we have camaraderie to mention it in that context. So right now, having realized and hit the rock bottom of a couple of those realizations and floated along the top of a couple where I felt inspired and had time to do it. Had the wherewithal to do, like a formal marketing plan and execute on it and, talk to people regularly. Not in that space. I haven't been in that space. I haven't found myself suddenly becoming magically capable of doing those things. So I'm back to, I'm just putting a record out. It's chill. I mean, I hope people love it. I really hope people love it. And I hope a lot of people buy it. And I'm going to do some things that people suggest along the way to appropriately promote it, but I'm not going to spend $5,200 on a week of somebody's PR probably.
Good.
And I'm not going to call a lot of labels and, try to, see if we're a fit right now, given this stuff. Although, there's obviously I've done some stuff in that regard and will continue to, but it's back to, I'm just a guy with a record and I'm putting it out. And, I think the world still supports that. And I'm hoping see where we all stand on doing stuff like that.
Yes, it does. And what you're doing is a great thing. It's very interesting. There's two very wonderful things that I like shooting my mouth off at this point. One being promotion, one being depression. And it's really fascinating that by the end of a cycle of creating, composing, making a record, you usually hit rock bottom anyway. The problem with our modern life is that there's just so much rock bottom going around. It's amazing how far that rock bottom goes. It keeps going, kids. When you hit rock bottom, don't test the floor. And do not ask the universe, can it get any worse? Because you won't like the answer. It's like, it just keeps going. And, when you compare where you were 2 weeks ago to the horrible shit that you were in to now, you go, wow, that horrible shit was paradise compared to this. So firstly, I think I'm going to just talk a little bit about depression and stuff, and I don't want to get too deep on that one, but I'm finding that I need a reason to do things. I need a muse. And even if the muse is an idea, it's even better if it's a person. Cats are great muses. Or something, or an idea. I read a quote from Buddha. I shouldn't say that, that's disrespectful, to Rick Rubin. He just looks like a guy on a mountain who looks like Buddha. In his very softly spoken voice, that make your music an offering to God. And you get to define God however you want to define God. But make your music an offering to God. So therefore, everything that goes with it, the promotion and everything, it's an offering to God. Because that's a very revolutionary thought. It's a very old thought, but it's a really revolutionary thought in this day and age, because you're not saying it's something to the algorithm. That's not your God. If the algorithm is your God, you need to change faith right now. Your God is something higher, and it might be you, or something you agree, or something you love, or something you care about. Define it however you want. I just don't want this conversation ever again with other people. Oh my God. Anyway, make it an offering to something higher, something better, something. For example, the whole concept of, gee, I just don't give a fuck. That's your driving force behind the album. You will probably write the best album you've ever written, and make your marketing also that thing as well. Do not assume to know what's going to happen with it, or where it's going to go, or you don't know. I've got a whole bunch of promo ideas within ANGELSPIT'S thing. I will very quickly find one now. I should have found it while you were talking, so I should have just gone, hey, look at this. Something, however, or maybe, and I do want to talk about is I've started with Ice Planet 9000. Here it comes. Okay, hold on a minute, it's coming, and then I'm going to talk about Ice Planet 9000. Copy the link. Now, I've shared this one before. Here it is again. Maybe you can use it, maybe you can't use it. Either way, I hope you find some sort of positivity within it. There it is. Oh shit, I have to work on this thing now. Okay, I'm gonna make a note that I put this in here. Now, with Ice Planet 9000, I went through and I found a whole bunch of, because I realized there is no attention to podcasts. Do ambient music have podcasts? Oh my God, they have podcasts. They have so many fucking podcasts. And if anybody has a podcast they want to throw my way, please do. Specifically for ambient music. So I've done all of this research and I've just been spending like between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. when I'm not supposed to be on the internet, but I was on the internet Googling and researching ambient music podcasts. And I've got a list of 30, maybe 40 really good ones now after fucking around for so long. Great podcasts. And I have individually emailed them. I didn't use a mailing software plugin thing. I individually emailed every single one of them. And when they responded, I talked to them back. When they didn't respond after 3 weeks, I hit them back, just following up. And I have found it to be really good. Like, it's a great way of working. And I am super happy with how that's going. And now like it wasn't getting played at all. And now I think 5 podcasts are playing the track that I threw them. And I've also made a whole bunch of people know that this project exists. So, because like you said, do I ship it to a label? And the question is, what's a label going to do for me? One thing labels do is they bring solidarity, and it's an ear to cry on when you go, I don't know what the fuck you're doing, but you've got this too. So my advice is to go out and do something crazy with your life. Worst. That's the worst advice ever. Do something crazy with your life, because trust me, it just doesn't matter. It's supposed to be fun. Does anybody want to jump in on this or anything else of that skid mark that I just left on the underwear of conversation? Alex, please.
So I wanted to care about my Spotify artist page, and I was about to write my bio, and of course that's always a bit uncomfortable to do. And I thought about just being very cryptic in my bio. And I wanted to get your opinion if that's a really bad idea, if it's a depends idea, if it's a good idea, I don't know.
I think that's a great idea. I think it's a whole big bag of don't give a fuck. So many people are using ChatGPT, and ChatGPT is going, like, I can't ask it for AngelSpit shit anymore because it's going, oh, I'll just regurgitate what AngelSpit has already written. And it's all very serious. My favorite bio of a band I have ever read was by the Dandy Warhols. I might be still their band bio, but a fan wrote it who was 5. And it was great. It was really good. It was very, very funny. Then they got somebody else to write another one, and it was quite offensive, but it was brilliant. Actually, Drake's from 40 Octaves Below. His bio is great. It's so sarcastic, and the tagline is, if you listen to these bands, then your mum will be worried about you too, or something like that, or your mother won't approve of this either, or something. It's really, really clever, and it's just that one line. It's like, you don't want to hear who was born in Kingaroy and like, one day a UFO came to Earth, and it shat out Alex, and from the poo hatch or something. Gee, I don't know. I don't know. But remember that press will want to copy and paste part of your bio. It is a good idea to include it with serious hashtags and words such sounds like these bands. These are the sort of genre hashtags that would be used. And something that is vaguely serious so that they can copy and paste. But the lesson I have learned in life repeatedly is that humor wins always. The most powerful thing you have in your arsenal, creative thing, is humor. Razzie, You have to sing your response.
No, I can't. I can't think that fast, dude. The things that I wanted to say were the include a few facts, make sure you've actually got at least a little bit of the stuff that you want them to copy and paste into their own articles, but also the abstract and poetic thing is you're a songwriter, you know how to hopefully at least get yourself off the starting line into creating something. And it's kind of the same process with the bio. You have some source materials, you have some inspirations, you have some frameworks and a direction you want to go in. Kind of doesn't matter where you end up as long as it's true to yourself and creative. And you probably know at least one copy editor so that like the spelling and grammar stuff is in line and it's not distracting for people who care about that stuff. And also your typos don't get copy pasted all across the internet. I have a good friend that does like it's her copy editing, a tiny bit of writing, but mostly copy editing is her main thing for PR and like scholarly papers and stuff like that. So she's really good. And I did a trade on services for something on that and ended up with some good suggestions and fixed typos in the last one I did. So yeah, those.
Alex, go.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I meant specifically for the Spotify page and maybe the social media pages, because I think if you're doing a press kit, you should maybe include some useful information. That you're totally right about that. Maybe you can RDJ it and invent stuff, but I think they need to have something to write about you.
I see exactly what you mean, and I know that is a special situation, but there should be one paragraph of your bio that is for that anyway. You know, if you've got a 3-paragraph page, the paragraph 2 is the one that you use for Apple Music, All Music Guide, Spotify, that kind of stuff. And Carl kind of alluded to this, and I'm sort of on this tip right now, but absolutely 100% fuck them. Like if you're really playing the game, okay, play the game, you might win. But Spotify in particular, they're trying so hard to find ways to pay us less and force us to do things their way that benefit algorithmic simplicity on their part, so they can it's just still going up my ass the wrong way, and fuck them there.
Fair enough. I would be you know, it's okay, it's a-okay to not like them. I would be suggesting that you still play the game as far as making sure people can, you know, read them and you exist there. You know, and like Apple is starting to do a fucking subscription thing, and those things, or you know, the sorry, I'm the artist pitching thing on Amazon and several other things. Not only do they go to curators, but they also go to people who like you already. And they do put you on your release radar, and a lot of people like, hey, you don't like Spotify, that's fine. A lot of people listen to Spotify, and a lot of people their go-to is the release radar, believe it or not, because it's such a well-designed algorithm. Even if you don't like those bands, they're going to listen to you. So yeah, absolutely. Feel however you want to feel. And another one to get in contact with, and I need to do this, is Pandora. Pandora's picking it up again. Yeah, Pandora has is building a whole bunch of stuff into it, and they're also yeah. But anyway, Rezi, I want to hear you breakdance.
I got a message from Tidal a couple of weeks ago that they're doing artist dedicated pages, self-serve. I haven't followed up on that, but do they count?
Sure, why not? So
anybody done anything with them?
Me personally, no, I have not. But I'm sure they're amazing. And my agitator goes to them. I'm sorry, I'm just copy and pasting the bloody link you sent me. This is great, and thank you so much for saying, hey, play Carlsbad. Yeah, they same with Deezer, whatever. it just sort of gets to a point where it's like, oh my God, how much of this shit am I updating and da 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 da. But that's the choice that you need to make. You could either be pushing that, or you could be watching dumb shit on the internet that brings with it a great big Karl spiel. And yeah, so I need to be breakdancing right now. Does anybody else have something they want to ask about this thing about promo and or depression, or and also remember that if you've got a good agitator, DistroKid or whoever, they will be pushing your music to like Sirius FM. Not like we'd ever get played there. Hold on, Maz, I see your hand. Rezi, I think I saw your hand just before Maz. But
Yeah, I was just hoping to hear a couple of success stories or a couple of triumphs over adversity in the mix. If anybody's got them, a couple of moments that you had.
Okay. All right. Can I put a pin in that? We're going to come back to it. Can you remind me? Because I want to throw to Mess. Mess, please. Where is your brain today? I can't hear you. It's all right.
This should work.
Hi.
Hi. Yeah, so I had someone reach out to me from a PR group. I don't know. It was really weird because at first they were like, oh, do you know what we do? And I looked them up and it seemed like they put on concert showcases. And I was like, okay, like if you have some opportunities for me, I'll take them, but like I don't know. And then I had a phone call with them and I talked to them and they finally sent me their like package of what they offer, and it was this thing of like I told them straight up, like I would like to release an album soon. My goal right now is like songwriting and making an album. But then they sent me like what their actual product is, and it was like this like PR thing of like, oh, we'll send it to this and that and blah blah blah, and it's starts at $500, and I was just like, no, thank you. I'm pretty sure we've talked about this before, and we've talked about similar stuff. So I knew going into that, I was like, I'm gonna be very careful about this and not agree unless it's really worthwhile. But I just wanted to share that it actually happened to me now.
Welcome. Welcome to the world, the scamming world. Welcome to the world where you are a target. Frank Zappa once said the greatest way to make money out of music is to make it out of the people who think they're going to make money out of music. Once again, Zappa nailed it. Yeah, so, and also if anybody ever says to you, and we're going to curate you onto a Spotify playlist, and all you have to do is pay for it, report them to Spotify, and Spotify will shut them down, because they're not allowed to do that. Curated playlists have to be free on Spotify. You can't charge for it. It's a part of the terms and services. Rezi, I'm going to throw back to you about, so if I will pick up from there, thank you again, Mez. If I will pick up from what you said, Rezi, sorry, it's coming, my brain will come with this. I did one time put in like a random tag when I was pitching my Spotify playlist, Spotify thing, and I said experimental, and that track got picked up, and it was a Nice Planet track, and it just went, and somebody put it on their playlist, and then a whole bunch of people saved it on their playlist, and it was like, oh my God, awesome. So that was a nice surprise. You know, man, I watch Spotify, you know, your plays do this on Spotify. I think as an artist, it's really important not to watch it and just continue to put out the best quality stuff you can do. And you can't, it's fascinating. This is, well, just really quickly, this is about God. What is God to you? Oh boy, I really, come on. Undo. Sorry. What is the higher power? Like I'm reflecting on the Rick Rubin, you know, to make your music an offering to God, because like that's another thing, is that the point of your focus is, if you are trying to impress people, you're going to fail. You're going to fail. If you're trying to make music for yourself, then you're probably going to succeed. If you're going to make music, then you are going to succeed by the definition of, no matter what happens, I'm going to make music. You cannot. Don't read the comments. Don't read them. And internet addiction says that you want to read the comments, and you want to look at the plays and all of that sort of thing. And to a degree, yes, it's important to be aware of your chart metrics, etc. But do not fixate on them, because once it's released, you got to learn, pick it up, and keep going. I'm going to throw it to you, Alex.
I would talk about my little triumphs I had, if that's fitting in the... So the first one is that in the last weeks I started to just do creative projects and finish them, which is like a first for me. And the second one is with my last band practice. In our rehearsal space, there were people we weren't anticipating, because we don't have like a schedule which band practices when. So there were other people playing, and we just played together. And despite that, I still managed to keep it together, to sing my lines, to not be afraid, and to deliver a good performance. And I felt for once like a proper singer, and that was kind of uplifting. Yeah.
That's brilliant. Did I see another hand go up, or did anybody else want to like share, or do we want to talk about something else? Okay, well, let's talk about something else. And thank you, everybody who spoke and indeed breathed. Breathed? I've always felt like that. Breathed. There's got to be a different word for breathing in the past tense. It breathed. It just feels, I don't know. Brainstorming album art. This is a great question from, does anybody named Mark want to actually pick up on that one and throw around some amazing ideas? Go, Mark.
That was my question. I don't have ideas for it. I mean, I guess what I was starting with was, I guess getting the vibe from the sum total of the feel of the tracks, but being that I'm not particularly artistically inclined visually, I wasn't really sure if there was a better way to approach that, and like also how to communicate that to an artist. Because I did sit down with an artist friend of mine, and she kind of like walked me through a few things, because she's probably going to do the art as a what's her favor to me, because we're old friends and all. But like I don't know how I would describe what I want to someone who doesn't really know me as a person.
Okay. What I'm going to do, just before, I'm going to throw it to Brett first, because Brett, I thought you saw your hand go up first. Firstly, Mark, and most importantly, congratulations on getting to this point, because I know you've been working on music for such a long time. So well done, man. Fucking great job.
Thank you.
So we're gonna bombard you with some outspoken, jaded advice now, because that's what we do. Brent, please go.
Maybe. Yeah. I've been kind of doing the same sort of thing. Where I've been going with it has literally been using AI tools. I'm not using them to do my actual album art. But it's a good way of just kind of sketching some of the concepts and whatnot that are in the songs into this image generator and see what comes out. And from there, I do actually like to draw a little bit. And honestly, this group was really pretty cool last week. They gave me an idea with the white suit and whatnot. Thank you, Carl and Brian. As it turns out, to that same regard, I've actually got an old drawing of this weird demonic creature in a white suit. So it's kind of neat. But yeah, that's one of the directions I've been using. I've literally been putting concepts that I have already created for my songs and whatnot into AI image generators and seeing what comes out.
Perfect. Thank you. Razzie, hit it.
I mean, he kind of took the words out of my mouth there. It's kind of the angle that I was going to go with. I think that spending the money on getting either a private GPT or Dolly or Midjourney. Actually, I'll say Midjourney is probably the most useful in this one. So you're not doing it in public, frees you up to do a little bit of stuff. So you can throw in as much variety and generate as much stuff as you need to have your ideas reflected back at you without bothering one of your friends yet. It's a pretty good place to start.
There's private Midjourney now or something?
Yes, if you pay the fee for Midjourney, your stuff doesn't go into the mainstream on it's not private in that you run it on your own instance, but it's private in that the stuff isn't reflected back into the we're testing our drops stream of all stuff. So you can put your own actual name and words and ideas in it without worrying about it possibly being seen by somebody you know or whatever. I found it a little bit liberating just to get to pay for the month just for that. Plus the unlimited and the priority on the processor and stuff made it a little more fun to use. I found that worthwhile, and I definitely went into it thinking I was going to use a Midjourney image because the stuff is so seductively nice looking. None of my consulted parties agreed that it had anything to do with the spirit or aesthetic of my music or band history. So shit can it. And I went to a traditional, photography and handwork method, but it got me through, a lot of the brainstorming stuff. So those are the two features I'm looking for, like offload some of the iterative process on a computer. They're good at it. And then bring it back to your trusted humans when you've got to a point where you think you're probably have it, and then be really loose about letting it go when they say you're fucking wrong. So
thank you. I'll just say very quickly, Mark, you can talk to Midjourney personally by messaging it. In Discord, you send it a message and you say /imagine prompts. And when you message Midjourney, it will talk to you through your messenger, and it will generate and show you all the images, and nobody else gets to see them, just you. Wow, my hand was up, but it's down now. I see Rezzie's wanting to add to something.
Yeah, I think Mark, you'll jump in too. I think Mark is familiar enough with Midjourney to probably answer both of us, but I don't think that makes it private. I think the stuff still appears on your display page. There's a website that it generates automatically. That stuff is still public when you do it that way. If you pay to have it private, it doesn't appear on that page and you can delete it. So I get what you're saying, Carl, definitely. But, to stipulate.
Cool. Matt, thank you. I'm going to throw it to Mess.
I feel like I'm in the minority with just being anti AI images, but
you're not.
That's my opinion. Where I'm I don't want to mess with that stuff. It's growing exponentially. I don't need to be any part of it. But I just wanted to share my process with the art for my release that came out recently. Because it was also a personal favor. It's a friend of mine that I helped them move, and I asked, like, instead of paying me for helping you move, how about you do some art for me? And that worked out. So that's how that art got done. I found this old engraving image of it's like a clown that's like holding a crown in front of a crowd, and I saw that image a few times. I was like, I really resonate with that and with my music, so I gave my friend that image as a reference. I was like, okay, can you like sort of redraw this with my character? And I also said, like, okay, style reference, Emily the Strange. Look at that. and use the colors and all that. And they gave me like, they showed it to me in the sketch version, and I approved it. And then they gave me the final image, and I wanted it in like a nice gold frame, so I did that. I redid the lettering. That was my process. And I just wanted to share how that went. Yeah, it's difficult to like have that back and forth with other artists, and like have like, you have a bit of a vision, but you're not 100% sure, and you're trying to like negotiate that. But I thought that was really cool, and it went well. I'm really happy with how that turned out, so I just wanted to share that.
That is amazing. Thank you so much. That's great.
Yeah.
Alex, what you got?
So if you already have an idea of what you want to have as your album art, I would just save images which have a familiar vibe, and save them in a Pinterest or in a folder, and then reference them. And also just draw what you want to have as your album art badly and show it to the artist, so they have an idea of what your general idea is, even if it's badly just stick figures, but just nailing it down to the bare minimum, because that's much better than nothing or just words, in my
Fair
opinion.
enough.
And if you don't have an idea what to do, I would just write down verbs and adjectives and try to, or maybe go through your music and the associations and maybe lyrics, and then try to figure something out from that. And
Alright.
to AI, I think the great danger with AI art right now that I think it will be look very dated in some years from now, because right now everyone is doing it, and I think we will have an eye for it in maybe 5 years, and it will look like 2023 AI art. It will be a bit cheesy. That's my prophecy anyway.
Thank you, Prophet Alex. Okay. Firstly, I'm pissed off that Midjourney learned how to draw eyes correctly, because a few months ago when it couldn't draw eyes, it was really interesting and it was really creepy. It's not creepy anymore. It's getting more and more photorealistic, and it's like, secondly, whoa. So it's always good to have a face that is recognizable as a face, even when it's a little tiny thing that is that big, because algorithms and people's like faces. Algorithms only like faces because people like faces. And if people see a face, they're going to click on it. It doesn't have to be your face. It can be someone else's face. There's no rules that say it have to be your face. People do prefer the female face. They just do. So take that or leave that. As far as what the hell is it? So there's partly what is the expectation of my audience, and there's partly, I want to do something myself. Like has been said here, if you have an artist to talk to that artist. If you don't have an artist to talk to us. And if we end up, after we do this thing, we can all have a chat about it. In fact, let's have a chat about it now. Tell me about the song, Mark. Let's brainstorm.
Okay, so far I've got, I think it's 4 tracks, no vocals. It's all
instrumental.
Yes, instrumental. Thank you.
Will there be vocals?
Not for this one.
Okay.
I maybe the next release I'll do vocals, but all right. I didn't want to delay this any further.
Great. When you listen to the music, use keywords to explain it to me that are not EBM cyberpunk. Go.
Okay. Okay, so I've got one track that is more energetic. I want to say it's evocative of a bad dream.
Okay.
There's another one that's evocative. I don't want to use that word again, but I guess I wrote this track envisioning a rainy hillside, a rainy grassy hillside, and sitting amongst the spider lily flowers. It's kind of like a gloomy. Go ahead.
All right. Both of these are saying clouds to me. Just keep going. Dreams to me say clouds. And what you just said was clouds, but we're going to keep going. Tell me about the other two tracks.
Okay, another one. I guess I would describe it as. Let me sure I can get these right, or else I'm gonna lose my nerd card.
Nerd card
the feeling
is good.
of walking through the hallways of the. I've lost it, but basically the ship from Alien.
Oh, the Nostromo.
Nostromo, thank you.
Fantastic, which landed in a fog. Okay, great. And tell me about the other one.
The last one is okay. The last one is a love letter to 90s anime. It's a lo-fi track. It's kind of supposed to be vibey. There's the sound of rain in the background that I did record from actual rain near my house. Well, at my house, really. So yeah, lo-fi, chill, relaxing, warm,
Interesting.
nostalgic.
Okay. If this album was created in a time, don't say now because that's boring. If it was created in a time, although one of the greatest sci-fis ever written was created 20 minutes in the future, but if yours was created in any time, what would that time be? And the follow-up question is where? Is it in a city? If so, what city? Is the city even invented yet, or did it exist in the past? Is it in a countryside? Is it a forest? First question: when? What year?
If I could ascribe a year to it, I'm going to say, I don't know, 2024, after, some major country has failed. So this is kind of like the remnants of society.
Okay. So this is a dystopian next year.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know what country that is?
I guess it doesn't necessarily matter which country it is, just any country that, has sizable cities. Because this is kind of like set in the outskirts, like kind of traveling and seeing the ruins of society in a sense.
Okay. So, because you've already described great halls and the interior of the Nostromo, which does to me suggest dystopia. And you've also mentioned a forest, and it feels like either the forest has collapsed or the forest is a place of sanctuary because the city's fallen through. So what's really interesting here, immediately my thoughts is a face with a background that has clouds in it and ruins.
That's really interesting because one of the AI images I generated as like a starting point is not unsimilar to that. Interesting.
See, and this is a really fun thing about AI as well, is that you can take, my prompt for that is high contrast HR Geiger shiny art line with rain lines and distant fog, lone figure on a hillside dim city. As long as that figure is close to you and you're seeing that face. Like I think this is a bus shot, me personally, only because the requirements of having a face. See, a fun thing is that you might generate / paint. You might take a photo of something, then you might superimpose parts of AI image onto that image to make some. You might take a photo of LA and then you might paste onto it a city in ruins in part or something, and then in the foreground there's a green screen of a person, an actual photo of a human being or a view or something. I don't know. And also the colors you're using here are really important as well. And I'm suggesting that they're dark and muted. Always make sure in every image there is pure white and pure black. Make sure there is an even sweep of contrast.
Okay.
And that's not just in the text either. like, don't have it dark with white text. You got to have pure white somewhere in the image. Although people are going to disagree with me on that, but I don't care because I'm going to come and punch you. So, and look, one last thing about AIs is that use them to start idea processes.
Mm-hmm.
Because exactly like what you said is that what I just came back to you with is what an AI would do, because AIs think like humans. That's their job. Humans are going to interject with some crazy wacky shit. AIs can't do that yet. But if you choose to generate images, build into them, morph them with things that exist, a painting or an already existing photo or something. Mess around with it, have fun. That's my thought, at least. And I want to hear other people's thoughts. Go, Alex, talk to me.
Yeah, but if you commission an artist, maybe I would be inspired by the thing the artist is good at. So maybe they are good at having like really fuzzy, maybe like oil painting, like artwork, or maybe they're good at like sharp lines and really concrete stuff. And maybe they do, I don't know, anime art. They do comic style, something like that. Just to think, okay, what is this artist good at? Maybe I can capitalize on that.
Yeah, and this does smell. It's funny you mentioned anime comic style. This feels anime comic style to me. But that's just me, Brizzy. I would love to hear your thoughts. Go.
That is not an incorrect assumption.
One other technique that comes to mind, and I think we talked about this a few weeks ago when I was working on it, is build something in the real world. Create a diorama, create a piece of fashion, create a piece of sculpture that you're going to incorporate into the thing, or that can influence the rest of the process, like a touchstone.
Hey, can I just pick up on something there? The whole idea of shooting a diorama and then green screening yourself into it, that is epic fun. That's great fun. In fact, that is perhaps something that I should be doing with my life. It's great fun doing that shit. Did anybody else want to jump in on that one for Mr. Mark? And remember, after these sessions, the whole brainstorming thing, that's what this is all about. Hi, Adam, and welcome. Okay. I thank you very much for that. That was a very nice thing. So industrial drums is something Alex wanted to bring up, was industrial drums. And Ivan, you mentioned something really interesting about trying to get away from the grid. Getting away from the grid means getting off the grid. Get off the grid, 808. There's something there. Somebody used that as a lyric. Alex, would you like to expand on the question that you had? Then I want to shoot my mouth off.
Maybe let's do Ivan's first, because I think I can say much about it, but maybe Ivan wants to ask, or I should restate it.
I could totally go.
Sorry, I cut you off, Ivan.
Yeah, I could totally go.
Go.
I want to get off the grid.
I'm after you.
It's very easy to, just drop a kind of easy to recognize pattern onto the grid. And, it's great. It's quantized, so it sounds perfect, which is not really that good because you lose all swing. But getting it back on the grid by programming it is a giant pain in the ass. But like, you're never gonna snares are never gonna sound right, especially on the grid, and especially programmed. It just never works. And then when you like try to throw in toms, like everything just gets messy so fast. I've been thinking about getting a pad controller, like MIDI to pads, and then plugging some cheap pads into it and using actual sticks to actually do things. because then the timing is going to probably work better. And, you know, and that is my best guess. Like I said earlier, I don't even have the language for this that well.
Do you have
Thoughts?
a 50? All right. Firstly, it's always nice when the snare is ever so slightly ahead of the beat because it drags things forward. Secondly, play it by hand and then use a kind of like a 50% quantized strength with everything. Another great thing to do is set up 2 microphones in a room, one there, and get something that makes a clunking sound when you hit it, and then hit it, and hit it in time with the track. And if you were in a crappy, shitty room that's got a whole bunch of reverb and ping going on, even better, because compress the shit out of that and then gate the shit out of that and put 0 attack on it so it's squeezing everything straight up. Then put a gate on it. I'm doing a thing at the moment where I've got one of those big watering bottles, and instead of dropping it down the staircase, I'm using it as some form of percussion in all the tracks. And whether it's hitting it on the one or using it as a snare or something, so it sounds alive. And then I'll do multiple takes on it. Another great thing to do is a clap track. Back in the days when we had this, there was a wetware thing, a meat droid. What was it called? It was a special thing. It was an app you could get on your phone where these things would come around to your house, and they would say things to you with their mouth, and you do this thing called smiling. What was it? Friends. Back in the day when we used to have this thing called Friends, everybody would stand around 2 mics, aforementioned, like cross like that, and clap, and that's called a clap track. 1, 2, 3, 4. And it's the basis of funk, and we need more clap tracks in industrial, because clap tracks put a party on any track, and they really, really do. It's just something about it where they just bring the track alive. So yes, clap tracks. I could go on for days about this, but I won't. Instead, Alex is going to go on for days. Go, Alex.
So I'm really passionate about this because that's a problem I've been having for a long time, and to a certain extent I still have. But for me, the recipe to drums that feel not static is first of all variety. The most basic one is to just have different volumes. Like I think the original TR drums had like accents you can place, and these do a lot of heavy lifting, especially if you then overdrive them a bit, so the timbre also changes a bit if it, or the compression and the timbre changes if the volume changes, and that together can give a huge variety of live feeling. I don't know, it's hard to explain. Also, depending on your sequencer, you can parameter lock. Like one of my favorites is to just slightly change the pitch or slightly change the decay time. That can do much. And what else? Delays can also help. Like a delay that's not on the grid but a bit off, with a bit of feedback, can do wonders. And yeah, if you have like something like a DAW and play it in by yourself, a thing I think is good to do is to just to listen what you've played and to just quantize the notes or the beats or that you feel like are off, but leave everything else intact. And also, if it's maybe if it's too difficult to play at the regular speed, you can slow it down, record it, and then speed it up so it has like your groove, but it's not as hard to play. That's what I've got.
Brilliant, thank you. And I will also mention very quickly, Resi, I do see your hand, give me a sec. With your drums, not just velocity also goes to filter a little bit, and also a little bit to pitch as well, because the harder you hit it, technically speaking, the higher the sound gets. And I'm talking 1 semitone at max. And then if you're going to distort that, the difference in when you distort something that's changing the frequency opening versus the volume, really interesting what happens there. That's all I got. Mr. Razzie, hit me, baby, go.
You and Alex really covered specifics about everything I sort of had in the back of my mind to go into. There's a little bit of a contradiction of terms as we're talking about industrial drums, which have so traditionally been defined as something that do play with the grid. They respect and sit on the grid and use other means to bring groove into it. And really, if you want to like not have the stuff on the grid, just get Martin to come by and, you know, throw down a groove. That's what he's only, what, 100 miles from you. Go down there, say, Mr. Atkins, work your magic, slam them things. I don't know if he's available this week, but there's human drumming and then there's grid stuff. And the grid stuff, you've got so much. Alex and Carl really just outlined it, but the fact that you've got 128 different volume levels to work with there is where a lot of that almost feels like swing comes in when you put the grace notes in and around it. And then, like Alex said, putting the dynamics processing after it so the stuff breathes in between the notes and does some unexpected stuff, and then the delays come in. There's so much in there that is still on the grid, but is doing all of this motion and evolving stuff that you know, hey, okay.
Yeah, dude,
I'm repeating their stuff right now, but
where I get into the most trouble is like, you want the snare to roll. You know,
machine gun snare rolls are a thing. They're on the 32nds, 16ths, you know, there's a long tradition to kick drums and snares that do that. And it's supposed to sound like a one-shot sample played over and over, not a left-right articulated, gentle, you know, batter side and snare strainer side mic'd ambient room, lovely. Oh, the nuance. It's like press rolls. Oh, they're delicious. Like, that's a thing. Do it if that's your thing. But if we're strictly talking about an industrial approach to that, there's a thing that we have established that is so on the grid.
Oh no, yeah. My problem is that it ends up sounding, to me at least, you know, especially in the stuff that I'm making, it ends up sounding too on the grid. And there's times where I really want, like, I'm gonna go back to 7th grade again, like that just nice smooth sweep and roll that I used to be able to pull off on, you know, a freaking like marching band snare drum.
Yeah, get a drum. Seriously, that's it. The pad's not going to do that for you, triggering samples. It may if you have an analog chain, or the Korg wave drum, which actually has piezo acoustic in it, so you can do. But get a drum. Yeah, do some stuff with a drum. Put towels on it so it's not loud.
Thinking about starting with like some Yamaha pads and you know, and a controller, basically, because it's what I've got. Also, like even a crap snare drum, those are surprisingly expensive.
Another thing to consider, and Adam, I see you're up next. Another thing to consider is when stuff rolls, it's tiny velocities. And if you've applied a bit of volume, a bit of pitch, and a lot of frequency to those rolls, that they start sounding more like rolls. Did you guys want to talk about anything else here, or can I throw it to Adam? Because I know he's gonna wanna hit this. Adam, the floor is yours. Go. Adam, I can't hear you.
Oh, there we go. Am I
Hey.
on? All right, great. Hi, everybody. Sorry I was late, but yeah, I've been taking notes and I'm ready. I'm glad I tuned in when I did. So, Ivan, I have two of these units. They're called the Alesis. It's made by Alesis. They're called the Sample Pad, and they're like these little 4-pad guys, and they're great because you can just put them on like a snare stand or whatever. It has this little bolt-on, you know, thing like all the other things do that you can put on stands like that. And the thing that's cool about them is that you are actually loading the samples like on a little card, you know, that you put in there. So the samples are on the card. So the latency is like nil. Right. So very, very good if you're looking to record something with like no latency between the pad and the sample itself. It's, I mean, you know, this is coming. My first love was the drums. I played the drums in rock bands for many, many years before I started doing any of this other shit. So like coming from a drummer, I can get pretty fucking tight on those things. Like, you know, the rolls that you're talking about, I can do those on the thing. Although when you're doing rolls like that, what you really want to do is you want to take out the reverbs and the tails on the drums and that kind of stuff. You want to square those fuckers off so that, you know, so that, as Raziel was saying, they're very tight and they're not overlapping and turning muddy on each other. So instead of it being bah, you want it to be bah. You see what I mean? So ways to humanize things. So, you know, we're talking there about the release, right? Varying the release, right? You know, making it this instead of this. Well, it's probably backwards to what you're seeing me doing, but on the dot, you know. So there's also on the other side of that, which is to vary the attack. So if you give it a little more slope on the attack, and if you want to do it even more, okay, there's also the velocities, right? Like Carl was just saying velocity, and velocities was one of the notes here. Like in most of the DAWs, as far as I'm aware, at least in, I mean, again, I'm always talking from the perspective of Reason because that's the one I use. But you can like literally go in on the piano roll and like, you know, click, 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 and change your velocities. Or you can just kind of do like a wiggly wave kind of thing, or you can run it through an LFO, right? You can run the, so that you can get a very, you know, just literally the LFO be like running the velocities on the track. Like, so getting a little deeper with the plugging in stuff that you can do, at least on Reason. I'm, you know, again, I'm always talking about Reason. I have the voice of Reason. Thank you, Alex. That's speaking of Reason, there's this wonderful little tool in Reason, and it's called the Groove Computer. And so you can literally set your parameters for humanizing the thing. If you want like 15% swing, but you want all the 2 beats to be exactly quantized, you can do that. Like you can pick which beats you want to stay quantized, and you can vary the swing, you can vary the velocity, all that kind of stuff. Carl's straight up, you know, when you're talking about the pitch thing, especially when you're doing those rolls as it gets faster, you know, it's like yeah. So other things, just getting in and sliding samples by hand. So if you're not using, if you're just doing it with waveforms, right? Like you can literally get down to the nitty gritty, unlock your quantizer and move some of the stuff around. The caution that I'm going to say there is, you know, we talked about this in the past, is that humans are our brains are super sensitive to quantization in low frequencies and much less so in high frequencies. So the stuff that you really want quantized is going to be those hard and you know, you were talking about emphasis a moment ago, Alex, and emphasis is definitely a part of that, and that's what you're doing with the velocities, by the way, is you're giving them you know, it's like right, the emphasis beat. This one has more velocity, it's taking a stronger hit, right? Other things you can do: program your hi-hats, then throw them on a side chain with the drums, and give it some variation by ducking it. So instead of it being on the drum, it's off the drum. See what I'm saying? Talked about different layers, but when Razi said get Martin to come and do drums for you, like straight up, yeah, like layering live drums over drum machine is like, I mean, all the Chicago bands did that for sure. Like all of Martin's bands and all of Martin's friends' bands and all the people who have been in Martin's band and all the bands that Martin has been in, 9 Inch Nails even, you know, there's a lot of in the Wish EP, that's the one that Martin produced. There's a lot of drum layers in that are live and programmed drums. So that's my notes for now. Thank you for your time. I shall step back down off the soapbox.
Thank you. Excellent intel. Alec, what do you got?
Yeah, it also depends which drum machine or sequencer you have. I think if you're using a TR-8S, you can do different things than using Ableton. What worked for me with snare rolls is to just not have them be on the grid, but that's maybe cheating because on the Octatrack you can set repeats for values other than on the grid, so I usually make them a bit shorter or longer, and it feels much more alive then. And also what I like to do is to have just some hits be stochastic. So not there's like a certain chance that this beat will trigger. And what else? I sometimes switch up the samples for the snares. So I have more than one snare sample. And that can also help. And also sometimes it's really good if the snare is not on the 1, 2, 3, or 4, but somewhere in between, in the 16th.
Thank you. There are other fun things you can do as well. For example, in the verse, the snare might hit on the 3, the 2 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 on 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, or it might come in just hitting the 4s. 2, 3, 4, or 1. Then it hits the 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and then in the chorus it hits the 2, 4. Another fun thing to do is in the verse shorten the length of the snare, so it's only like an 1/8. But then in the chorus, in the chorus you actually bring in the you let it ring out, so it's like a crotchet, a beat, you know. That's all I've got for right now. I see the hand of Raz.
I just wanted to take off on what you're saying. You've mentioned it a couple of times, but the other things you can do besides moving the actual notes off the grid are so infinite that there's everybody who's spoken before me has mentioned like 2 or 3 ways of doing it: your attack onset, your decay time, your pitch, your filter sweeps, the reverb that is after it is fed with it, the amount of distortion on it, the actual volume velocity of it, and all of these things mixed together and put in combinations can really go a long way to giving you expression in stuff that is still glued to that grid. And I mean, you can have an entire lifetime of exploration just in those areas about how to evoke subtle motion around the static grid just using those techniques. Right? I think there's a lot to explore there. As someone who's also tried to program drums that sound exactly like a human drummer with all the, you know, articulations and hits and stuff, it's a entirely different world.
Awesome. Does anybody else want to continue on this one, or do we want to go to something else? Because I do have something I'd like to bring up, unless we want to talk about drums, but I think I see Alex's hand. Go, Alex.
Yes, my original question was how to make maybe impactful industrial drums, because I remember you did a video, or Carl did a video more than 10 years ago about how to do industrial drums 1-1, and you used
Paint Hell Red.
Wave multiplayer, and maybe we could generalize ideas on how to make impactful industrial drums, and maybe different techniques like compression or distortion. That's not like your boss. I forgot the number, but your general cliche wants to do it, because like every time I distort a 808 through just the overdrive, it sounds like a cliche, and I don't want it. I want something that's brutal but not overused.
Okay. Do you want me to start a rant on this? Because it was my body. All right. I'm going to have a really short rant because, Rezi, do you have to go?
No, I just wanted to say a really short thing before you do go. if I may, and that
Of
is
course, yes.
simplicity and contrast. Hopefully, like starting with those, maybe they're where you're taking off from. I'd like to hear what you have to say.
Thanks. Awesome. The really fun thing about specifically modular, or maybe it exists in non-modular, I don't know, wave shaping and shit like that is you can frequency modulate them. And you can use frequency modulation on a whole bunch of things. And it's not just I'm going to stick it into distortion now. It's I'm going to really epically fuck with the modulating. And it's not, it is partly changing the amount of modulating that's going on, but it's also saying I'm going to run a sine wave at 1,000 cycles into this modulation to see what happens. And put a you can get some absolutely divine things when you start doing that. It's not just distorted. You wave shape it and you fuck with the wave shape. That's what I was doing in that track. But you can actually hear all of these parts where you can hear the notes. It's driving it so hard, the notes that are modulating are coming through. And they were that was all changing. You're actually inspiring me. I have to go back and do this again on another track. So it would be playing a melody as the drums were playing. So I just take the drum track and put it onto like a VCO, an oscillator, pull out the sawtooth, and I would drive that sawtooth into the wave shaper. So the wave shaper is actually and the notes that are the melody that oscillator is playing, that's over 5 octaves. And it's really cool that when it's a really super low one, you can hear it go flap, 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 flap. All of this really fucking cool shit. And then you don't just do it with a wave shaper, you could also do it with an amplifier or a filter or someone mentioned a granulizer or a bit crusher. Like my one thing is make sure the kick is solid and don't fuck with the kick because you need that fat constant thing. Yeah, pretend it's 1965 and you're Wendy Carlos and you are now experimenting. Like, wipe your mind and go into this thinking, what is something from a late 60s, early 70s modular perspective where there are no expectations, there is no 808, there is no spoon. And realizing that it's not the spoon that bends, it's you. It's not the sound that is being destroyed through a wave shaper, it's you. It is your mind and it's your perception of what you can do. Yeah. What I did something really fucking whack and I'm trying to remember what that was. I don't remember what that was. There was one track like in 100%. I took the output from the drums, ran it through an envelope follower, took the output of the envelope follower of that, stuck it into a oscillator, then frequency modulated those two things together. No, I ring modulated them together, I think. So it was this really constant weirdness. I have to get back into doing that because now it's just thing about modern modulars, man. I'll be quick, Adam. I'm sorry. Thing about modern modulars is they do everything for you, so it takes a lot of the inventation out of it. I think that's why I don't want modern modulars. But you know, since I got the best fucking 909 kick drum and all this shit, I don't fuck around with that shit anymore. I really, really should. So thank you, Alex. Your question has inspired me and kicked me in the ass. Adam, hit me.
I have notes. Okay. Things to do to drums. Again, we're kind of going from the industrial perspective. So what we're looking for is harder, right? Okay. So a couple of minutes ago, I was talking about, you know, the decay, right? You know, and tightening that up. So if you tighten that up, you get a much punchier drum hit, like with pretty much anything, like doof, sound hits differently than doof, right? Bah hits differently than bah. Right. So what you really want to determine is like where you want the frequencies to do that. So if you like a lot of times with industrial, well with anything, a lot of times the best way to do things is literally to layer the frequencies. So instead of using one kick drum, you're using 3 different sounds to create a kick drum, right? So you have your sub, you have your low sort of like hits you in the gut frequencies, and then you have your higher hits you up here, the diff part of the drum, like diff kick drum, like the beater sound, the beater hitting the head sound, diff, right? And then you've got poof, right? That's what hits you down in here, and then you've got boom, and that's the way down, right? And so what you really want to do is you want to address all of those frequencies and then compress them together. Like you mix them together, but mix them into a compressor, so that you're basically you're using the compressor to glue it together. So you're kind of like a lower ratio kind of thing. Like you're not, you know, you're not talking like a 5-to-1 or something. You're talking about like between 1 and 2-to-1, just to kind of glue the layers together a little bit. Then you'd want to do your maximizing, right? And that's to get the quietest part of it closer to the loudest part of it, and to kind of set you're setting your limit, like you know, maximizing and limiting. I think that's the important thing there. Is you one of the things with industrial is that, okay, so there's a couple of different ways to look at distortion, right? One is like warm distortion, right? And like a tape distortion, right? Which sounds really good on like hi-hats and shit, right? Tape distortion. And then you have like this digital distortion, right? Which is like cold, clippy distortion, right? It's cold distortion. So the warm distortion, the reason it's warm is because without getting too complicated about it, the overtones are harmonic. And the reason that the digital sounds cold is because they're not harmonic. The overtones are not harmonic in that distortion. So that's 2 different ways to look at using different distortions, right? So like by pushing the maximizer and the limiter to get that sort of most amount of loudness in there, right? You're actually creating more of that cold distortion as you reach the peaks, right? So you can kind of go by ear and say like, where does that hit me hardest, right? It's like you're not, you know, what you're looking for ultimately is how it makes you feel when it hits you, right? And so that's the getting down to your ear. And of course, you can always adjust those layers when you're going back to it. Say like it's not quite there. You go back and forth. Other things, layered snares, of course. You know, Carl mentioned the bit crusher a minute ago. So like one of your layers can be extremely affected, right? And you can mix it lower in the mix with your other layers of snare. You can take 2 copies of the same thing. Affect one of them with the bit crusher, mix it back. You like this sound? Great. It sounds great on its own. Great. Now make another layer of it, throw an effect on it, bit crush it, filter it, you know, just make sure your EQs aren't getting muddy. I mean, you know, usually you just kind of take some of the bottom out of it, you know. Compression, getting back to compression. So there's this trick in dance music. It's been done since like the 2000s or so. Like Benny Benassi actually really pop. You know, Satisfaction, right? And how like fucking whoomp into the speakers those drums are. Like that song literally changed music production for nightclubs, because it was like the first real example of what we now call New York compression. And so the way that is done is by creating a duplicate channel, not a duplicate track, but a duplicate channel through which all of your layers and all of that we've just been talking about is then duplicated into another channel itself. So it's basically like you have one, say all your drums are going into, you know, like all your kick drums are going into kick one, which is your sub, right? Your sub channel, not your subwoofer, but your sub channel. And then you make a copy of that, right, as a second sub channel that does exactly the same thing, but it has its own effect chain. You throw the compressor in there, you blow the shit out of it with the compressor. I mean, you compress the fuck out of it and then dial back from there as you mix it in to the original signal. And that's how he gets that, right? And it sounds amazing on the subwoofer, obviously, because it's so compressed and all those frequent, it's like, you know, the original signal has all the roundness to it, and then the signal that you're mixing into it has all this loudness to it, right? So it's like you get this kind, and you balance between that like loudness and dynamic, and that's how you get that punch. Layers, layer other things than snares into your snares. One of my favorites, clangs. I like clangs. Layer other things into your kick drums. So one way to kind of emphasize, so like, you know, we were talking about the different frequencies in the kick itself, right? You know, beater, belly, and sub, right? There's obviously more frequencies, a lot more frequencies above that, you know, above the vocal range and all that too. So one of the things that you can do is, I mean, even if you take like a ride, like a ping ride, like, or a bell ride, right, and just ding ding ding, or like a cowbell or something, you know, take a cowbell, right, and run it through some, you know, I don't know, you know, distortion's always a good one, but like, you know, mess with it, like, you know, throw it into some effects and see what happens, you know, like maybe you end up getting this like crazy, you know, and like layer that over your snares too, so that every time it hits, there is something that has a unique character where there's a sound in that higher range that your brain picks up every time the kick hits. Except, of course, when you want to take it out because you're like dropping all the frequencies down to just the boom, boom, you know, kind of thing. You know what I mean? But it creates another trick for the ear to have something up there that every time, you know, if you're doing something syncopated, you might just use it on the one beat or something, or, you know, same thing with the snares though, too. If you do, one of the big tricks in the 80s, right, was tighter gate on the 2 beat, longer gate on the 4 beat. So, boom, ba, boom, ba, boom, ba, boom, ba, right? And hi-hat sounds too. So using upper percussion things, you know, running your hi-hats through their own distortion and their own filtering and their own, like, you know, you can take like a little layer of that, set up a tight flange, so it's not like, but it's like, right, and work that into its own layer in there, and then you're creating some left and right motion. And then, you know, you can make it pretty tight on your width too, like you can make it pretty small on your width, and then you get this little like shoop 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 that's just going like, you know, right in here instead of, you know, way out here. It's like right in here. There's all kinds of things that you can do that that'll help, you know, to get that, how do I say, like, you know, I mean, you're talking about wanting to go hard with it, you know, so, you know, getting things to punch is a big thing. You know, the other thing is with your snares, do not be afraid to, you know, if you're not layering a kick under the snare, layer part of a kick under the snare, if that makes sense. Like, so that the snare has bottom end, but it's not going into the very lows or the sub. You know what I'm saying? right? Because that gives more from underneath on the snare, you know, frequency. You know, that's the other thing too, is that like you're using very specific frequency ranges that way. Yeah. Okay, I'm done. That's too much out of me now, right?
That is brilliant, Adam. This is a larger conversation that I think we need to have sometime. It's just great. Rezi, thank you again, man. Rezi, what do you got?
Alex, you said brutal. I think that is a key word to focus on. Adam gave a lot of very specific practical techniques for getting there, but what we're, I think, talking about is something large, loud, and damaged, and that equals danger, out of control, threat, and keeping that goal in all of your psychoacoustic endeavors and directions and small adjustments is probably, at least from a producer standpoint, the non-technician side, that's I think it'd be in good service to look at it that way. What are the things in nature that make those feelings happen?
Thank you, Rezi. I'm going to answer that one. Firstly, I want to show you one of the greatest key snares that there are. My keys on a string. So I'm dropping it on the 2 and 4. If you can stereo mic it, do it. And if you can drop it on a hard surface like plastic, like a plate, a chopping board on a table, or metal is obviously best. Every time it hits, it makes a different sound. And then you pull it up. There's rhythm in that. And that's rhythm that you can't replicate that rhythm. Hold on, there's more. So, you know, do that. And don't correct it too much either. Just correct it a little bit. I'm going to pick up on something Rezi said that was really important. And that is that when you whack something and sample it, you hit it like that. And only a certain amount of frequencies are dispersed when you do that. But when you get, like let's say you have a 44-gallon drum. What's the German equivalent of a 44-gallon drum? Do you know what I mean by a 44-gallon drum?
Probably a big steel drum. I don't know.
Big steel drum that they put oil and industrial things in. So if you whack that, certain frequencies are going to be released. But if you whack that thing with a baseball bat with earplugs in, and you bring in the mics way down because it's going to distort, you are unleashing a world of frequency pain. And that's a really interesting thing about the death of industrial music, is that people don't really do that anymore. They don't go out and beat the shit out of stuff and pull out these huge frequencies out of things. Because, you know, if you want to make something scream, you bang it hard and it will produce tonalities. The thing when you whack it gently, mainly what you're hearing are the high end stuff. When you beat that motherfucker, and also you might want to wrap something around the, if you want more of the lows out, take the highs out by wrapping a towel around the baseball bat, like only once. Wear earplugs and bash that fucker. And take a 58, like one of the Slim Shaw 58s, and stick it into that barrel as far as you can. The difference in sound when you beat something is just fan-fucking-tastic. And all the old school industrial bitches are going, yeah. You know, you don't really write a track until you have splinters. And eye protection, I shit you not. Eye protection and ear protection is mission critical on this stuff. So once again, Sonic Safari, you have to try and go somewhere where you can actually record this stuff. Take your little, I've got my little Zoom recorder thing and a mic stand so you can sit it on something. and some big scary stick that you can whack shit with. Yeah, and a pop guard, because usually it's going to be outside and usually it's going to be windy. Junkyards, man. We don't have junkyards anymore, and it has reflected badly on our music. Resi, go.
I don't have to launch into a really big nostalgia story about this, but when they were doing the Third Harbor Tunnel project in my neighborhood of Boston, those sounds came to me. That metal came to me. The objects to abuse and hit and strike with other objects that were left around came to me. And it was that moment in the late 90s that Carl is referring to, where stuff was hit, and stuff was hit harder, and stuff was hit with padding harder. And aside from the beauty and aesthetic that image has on its own, the Sound Safari watchword was don't clip the transients. Like, we've got so much dynamic range that just turn the recording level way down and preserve the impact. You can recompress later. Just make sure you're not clipping off all of your initial hit. So set your levels super low.
Yeah. Stereo is great. Mono will work just fine. And on a situation like this, you might actually want to take two mics just in case X, Y, or Z fucks up. But it's really interesting, like when I'm talking and when Rezi's talking, if you're looking at the reaction on Adam and, you know, Diana and, you know, Ivan's face, not to pick you guys out because of your age, but there's a big grin on our faces right now, because there is something magical about actually going out to get sounds and getting covered in dirt and grease to create sounds. And it's a really wonderful thing. Like, fucking go out and do it. And once again, like Rezi said, watch your clipping, eye protection, ear protection, and you must have a fucking windsock, a really good windsock over your mic. And the best mic to use, because I'm old school, is get a 58. Use your Zoom, it's great, but have a 58, because those things, yeah. Oh, sorry, 57. I'd be going to 57. Just because, you know, snare drum mic, it's fucking 57.
Yeah, but if you want your windscreen to be totally beat up because you were out in the field, take the 58.
Yeah, and also that does add, and make sure you get some rust on it, because that's going to add legitimacy to you and your cause. And right there is an album cover, just a 58 that's beaten up and rusty. That's my thoughts. We're kind of at the end of it. I had another question I wanted to ask, but maybe that's for another day. We've sort of hit our point. If anybody has anything they want to bring up quickly, please do. Oh, Adam. Oh, I'm sorry. Alex, I see your hand.
Yeah, I wanted to say I actually did that when I was 16, but I think what I did wrong back then is not knowing that I needed to compress my samples, because I recorded it, was so enthusiastic, and it sounded just like, and I think I just need to redo that and set the level right this time, and also compress it afterwards, because I feel like my field recorder records a larger than life dynamic. And yeah, I think I just need to compress those samples.
They might, and I'll also put it in, I'll verbalize it. Thank you, Adam, for that piece of advice, which is another 2-mic trick is use the second mic several yards behind it to get the reverb or to get the ambience of it. And you're not actually making a stereo sound, you're still making a mono sound, but one's got the reverb behind you, and you get and fucking compress that motherfucker. And if you compress it, and if you can do this in a car park or a car lot, depending on whether in the US what you say, the reverbs in those places are great. But anyway, we're done. This has been Out of Rock every Saturday. We meet here. We're going to upload it later. Hopefully we're going to be alive again very soon. Thank you again to ANGELSPIT'S Patreon. You guys keep me going. And also normally we would now zip on over to MTV TV, but now we're just going to wave and say goodbye. Bye, bye, bye.